I'm here.
We did it.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. You can hear me fine?
Yes. Perfect.
Okay, good. I had a microphone. I had it all set up this morning. I don't know what happened, but
It's
I
all
guess
right.
the computer
Happens.
is going to have to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good. Yay. I'm so glad that you're able to join us. So today we have on Michael Ramos, who is the founder of the NOAA system. And he'll get into more detail, but basically, it's an automatic flushing device used to reduce lead levels in schools. So, this is a really, really, really important system. He's going to tell us all about it. Just a little bit of background on our relationship. So, we kind of first learned about the NOAA system in October of 2019 when Hydroviv's founder, Dr. Eric Roy, testified in front of Congress, and so did Michael. Congress was basically looking for the newest innovations and technologies that might be able to help with America's lead crisis. And lead has devastated cities like Flint, Newark, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and it's still not really solved, especially in America's schools. So, with that being said, I have a couple questions that I'm going to go through and ask Michael, just so that we can kind of learn more about the NOAA system and what it does. So, I guess we'll just kind of start with um, so, Michael, like, what is your background and how did you really start to pay attention to water quality, specifically lead?
Okay, well, first of all, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the invitation to being here to talking with you guys. My background is engineering. I have a background in electrical engineering, building automation, direct digital control. Um, I'm certified by the EPA for Universal Tech certified for that. I got involved in lead and drinking water problem after I was scrolling through the TV one day and I saw Mark Edwards testifying before Congress. And the things that he was saying about the dangers and the hazards that we face for not solving this problem, pretty quickly and effectively, along with the people from the EPA saying that lead is one of the most toxic poisons that we need to address like immediately. It has long-term effects. It really, grabbed my attention, and because I am a dad and I do work for the city of Chicago, as an engineer, my daily responsibilities is to make sure that thousands of kids, when they come to school, they're not exposed to lead. They do come to a clean, safe environment. So that's pretty much how I got involved. I started paying attention, did a lot of research, started, figuring out what the culprit was, the main reason why we were seeing all these elevated levels. And then it just kind of took off from there.
Cool. Yeah. So I remember in one of our previous conversations, you said that you wanted to kind of address your house first as kind of like a test to see if reducing lead levels in the way that you were thinking would be possible. So kind of walk us through like the first prototype of the NOAA system and how it really works and how it works, how you retrofit it for schools.
Okay. Um, yeah, with my background in electrical engineering and building automation, I realized pretty quickly, following the Flint water crisis, that stagnant water is the problem. The longer that water sits in your pipe, the more likely you're going to have elevated levels of lead, copper, whatever it is, impurities that are in water. So what I discovered pretty quickly is you have to prevent water from sitting in your pipes, period. If you could do that somehow, and regular usage in a home is just not a way to do it because we spend a lot of time away from home. And even when we are home, we don't use enough water to apply that orthophosphate barrier, which is something that they put in the municipalities at the treatment plant to coat the inside of your pipe. What I found out early on too, when I was creating the device, was stagnant water, if it sits in your pipe for longer than 6 hours, the orthophosphate barrier becomes ineffective. It starts dripping down. So now you're back to square one where your water is constantly coming into contact with the lead in the metals of your home. So I had a lead service line in my house, and I have children, so I was just like, well, something needs to be done. Let me take care of my kids at home, prove the concept. It was a crude design that I think I'm going to post up, so that you guys can see like my original design. I didn't really care what it looked like. I just wanted to make sure that it was effective. And I kept that 6 hour stagnation time in mind when I was designing it, and I just cut that in half. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to double the stagnation time. I'm going to cut it in half and go with 3 hours. Every 3 hours, the system is going to flush. I attached it to my main service line coming into the home, and I started flushing it out directly from there. And since then, the water in my house, the ice cubes coming out of the freezer, the automated freezer tray, the ice cubes became clearer and clearer and clearer. So now they almost come out like glass. There's no impurities in the house. I recently bought a Hydroviv filter, and I put it in my kitchen too. So it's kind of like a 1-2 punch that I'm using right now. Noah's doing all the heavy lifting. It's purging everything before it comes into the house. It's coating the inside of the pipe with orthophosphate. It's maintaining that barrier so that my water never comes into contact with the lead pipe servicing my home.
Got it.
So back in 2016, CPS started testing out the drinking fountains, their water quality in their schools, starting with the elementary schools first. And what they noticed was 37% of the buildings had at least one fixture that would test above the EPA action level, which was 15 parts per billion at the time.
Wow.
Now, what's important about this whole conversation is these are things that happened way before the pandemic, way before the shutdowns. So everything that we're talking to is during normal operation. You have students utilizing the building. People are in the building every day, Monday through Saturday, and we were still seeing these elevated levels. So what I did was, I knew no one was coming to help. I mean, some of the strategies that were out there, no one's coming to help. No one had a good strategy. CPS bans the usage of filters. They're against filters. We have limited resources. If we were to try to go ahead and convert all the galvanized pipe in the building to copper or something like that, the environmental cost alone to do that in one building is just astronomical, and it's just not feasible. So what I decided to do then was just like, all right, let me take what I made for my house, retrofit it, make some changes to it, tweak it out, and then start attaching it to drinking fountains throughout the building. And I would, be assured that there's never stagnant water in that building at any time. As long as the building's occupied, the system is activated, there's constantly flowing water through it. And what we did was we brought back confidence where the students feel confident in drinking from the drinking fountains. They stopped bringing plastic bottles to school. They stopped buying plastic bottles from the vending machines. And what we've done, I did the math. We've cut down approximately 100,000 plastic bottles going to waste within that first year of introducing Noah into the building. So yeah, I just did everything I possibly could because, like I said, I'm responsible for the lives and well-being of all these students. And I just did everything I could to make sure that they were protected and safe.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So I guess like one of the major takeaways is that stagnant water elevates lead levels. So like you were saying, in a person's home, like maybe your water is sitting stagnant overnight, but in schools it's sitting stagnant over the weekends, over summer vacations, over like winter vacations, and right now most schools or several schools are closed due to a pandemic. So right now, lead in schools drinking water could not be a more important thing to be talking about because of the stagnant water that's going on right now.
Yep.
So yeah.
Yep.
So basically 6 hour stagnation period to create that orthophosphate crust. You cut it in half, just to be safe. And then there we are.
There we are. And another thing too that we need to start looking at very seriously is bacterial growth inside, buildings that have been shut down for 9 months. That's another like major concern that we need to talk about too. Legionella,
Right.
a lot of reports in Europe were coming out, that Legionella, was breaking out. They had to shut buildings down because of that, not because of COVID. They tried opening back up. We've had some cases in New Jersey and in New York. So it's a very real and present danger, I think the focus right now is on COVID and opening up these buildings safely. But unfortunately, I think a lot of times the water is just being overlooked, and that's something that you have a NOAA system in your building. It's completely maintenance free. It's going to do the work for you. It's basically a plug and play. I designed it that way. You plug it in. It requires no routine maintenance. And no configuring. Once you put it in, it's going to do the job. And that's one thing, rest assured that that your students will not be exposed from bacteria, elevated lead, or copper levels.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess we can kind of talk about why we're talking specifically about schools because lead is so dangerous for children. So let's kind of get into why lead in particular and why children are such a high risk category for the long-term health effects. So I know that when we had talked previously, you had mentioned some of the things that kind of coincide with high levels of exposure to lead. So do you want to just kind of like get into that a little
Sure.
bit?
Lead is a neurotoxin, and children are more vulnerable to it because they absorb more than adults. I mean, they have smaller bodies, so they absorb more of it. And it affects the brain. It lowers IQ, increases aggression. Um, and what really troubles me, or what really got me involved, is that finding out that the results or the effects are irreversible and permanent is something that, it just blew me away, that
Yeah.
thinking here we are in 2020 or 2016, and these are things that, we might have taken for granted at one time, that we think when we turn on a faucet, that everything's fine. But,
Yeah.
we really got to take a look at it and, address it appropriately. Another thing too, that really stood out to me, aside from all the other damage that it does to soft tissue, the heart, the liver, um, the body mistakes lead for calcium, and it starts absorbing that lead into the bone. So a young child who's, let's say 6 or 7 years old, they're ingesting lead from school or wherever they get it from. They don't know, lead doesn't have a smell, doesn't have a scent to it, doesn't have a taste to it. So you don't even know that you're being exposed to it. I've seen kids come in from recess, go straight to the drinking fountains, and they were talking about old porcelain drinking fountains with brass fixtures, and just take drinks of water. They don't know, they're innocent.
Yeah,
Um,
they wouldn't think twice, like and they
exactly.
shouldn't have to.
Exactly. And that's another reason why I got involved, because it's like these kids, when I see them, I see my kids, and we send our
Yeah.
kids to school, we send them to learn, to grow, to mature. We don't want our kids going to school where they're exposed to something like that lowers their IQ and prevents them from reaching their full potential. So getting back to what I was saying about lead being leached into the bones and stored in the bones, as we start getting older, even after 20 years, the body can only discard maybe half of the lead exposure that you received from a child. So when you start becoming adults, you start deciding that you're going to have a family. Women who become pregnant, the fetus starts taking calcium from the mom to develop its bone structure. So if the mom has lead in the bones, it's going to go immediately into the child. We see a rise of cases of autism. I can't tell you how many special ed programs we have in the schools right now. We're seeing it, like the uptick is happening,
Yeah.
and it's just happening at an alarming rate. Noah is named after my nephew who's autistic. I have a grandson that's autistic, and it's just, these are things that are not hereditary, but it's all environmental,
Yeah.
and we need to take it very seriously, which is something that I'm doing. I advocate for it every day. Every opportunity I have to come on, podcasts, and talk to people about what it is that I'm doing, just to bring that awareness around. I've gone to several engineers meetings where the message is just being lost, where engineers don't even understand why it is that they need to do certain things, why CPS is asking them to do manual flushing. They just see it as a task that is being put on them, and it's an unnecessary task, But as I go to these meetings, I talk to them all the time, and I tell them, look, guys, this is why we're doing it. It's so
Yeah.
important. We can't just say that we're not going to do it because you don't understand why it is that you're doing it. This is why we're doing it, and it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just another thing to add is that, like, yes, Chicago public schools are testing for lead, but a lot of school districts are not. And that's pretty terrifying
Yeah.
because once you know that it's a problem, you can then hopefully mitigate it or hopefully do something to kind of change it. But I think the statistic is like only 40% of schools nationwide actually test for lead. And
Right.
those testing requirements are sometimes state specific and sometimes schools just, they do a voluntary, which is pretty rare. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
extremely
guess,
rare.
yeah.
And the
So I
thing
think,
too is, like, the testing protocols, like Chicago Public Schools right now is saying that they're dedicated to testing once every 2 years or once every 4 years. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't remediate something effectively, you know, what good is it to test it once every 2 years? We don't know what's happening within those 2 years. You haven't brought that confidence in the community, in the schools where people are using the water, they're drinking out of it, which is encouraging that orthophosphate barrier. You haven't done that. So within those 2 year span, we don't know how many children are going through there that are being exposed. And that's something that's just like extremely alarming to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these protocols and regulations are so outdated. I think the lead and copper rule was set in like 1991, and we haven't done anything to update it to a level that actually makes sense for medical purposes instead of just kind of what's easiest for a municipality or a school district to accomplish.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah. So I think that those are all the questions. I just wanted to make sure that people can get in touch with you because I'm sure we're going to have a ton of people asking how they can get a NOAA system into their child's school. So I have an article with the contact information linked in our Hydroviv's bio right now. But if you just want to say like how people can get in touch with you, your Instagram handle for the NOAA system, that'd be great.
Hmm. Well, honestly, this is the first time I'm on Instagram, you know, so I can share that information with you. But the best way to get a hold of me is through my email address, which is michael@noahsystem.co, or just visit my website, noahsystem.co. All my contact information is there. You know, and I look forward to, you know, even if it's just, you know, for advice that I could give people, you know, or different districts, you know, I'm here to do whatever I can to make a difference to help out. And you know, that's another thing I want to say too, real quickly. When I first designed NOAA, I didn't design NOAA to build, I had no intention of building a business around it. My intention was to share it with other engineers throughout the district and just show that, you know what, this is a way that we could do it. We could be proactive. We could take care of the problem. If I could give it away for free, I would. But it's just something that, you know, if I'm trying to do something, you know, to spread it with a bunch of people, I don't make enough money to do that. So that's the
No,
reality of
absolutely.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are super excited that you came on this Instagram Live, and this is such an incredible product. So everyone should go check it out. NOAA System. Yeah. So thank you so much, Michael, for
Thank you.
joining. And yeah, we're excited to work with you in the future. And yeah.
Thank
All
you. I'm
right.
excited too. Thanks
All
a lot.
right.
Tell Eric I said hello.
I will. Bye,
All right.
everyone.
Bye bye.